So I've started out with a solid piece of clay, and I'm starting by just carving away at it, kind of compressing the clay and carving away at it at the same time. This way I'm getting the basic shape of the upper half of the legs. And once I have the shape that I want, I'm going to carve out the inside as much as I can to make this a hollow shape. And I'm separately going to make the top half of the body and then attach the two halves together. Throughout the entire manuscript illustrations, there actually are no examples of what the back of one of these figures would look like. So I'm really just going by my best guess as to what the whole three-dimensional figure would look like. And it's not so much based on regular human anatomy as it is based on looking at the actual drawing itself. And I'd prefer that these sculptures look as close to the drawings as possible rather than as close to real human anatomy as possible. I'm extending the legs a little bit, still with solid clay, and then I'm going to hollow out the top of this lower half as much as I can. Also, if anyone's not familiar, this is called score and slip. This is just a liquid form of the clay, the same type of clay that I'm sculpting with. And you scratch into the clay and join it with this almost like a glue. Since the proportions are very condensed, her knee actually starts way up here. So anything lower than that gets thinned out. And I'm just trying to scoop out as much clay as I can carefully reach. To make the upper body, I'm starting with a solid piece of clay for the basic shape of the torso. But for the face, I'm actually going to make that out of a mold that I previously made. So with this mold, I take a piece of clay, press that into the mold, and when I pull it out, it has an impression of the face that I previously sculpted. So I'm trimming the excess clay, and it's still very soft, so I have to be careful not to press into the face shape. So I've only made this out of solid clay just so that I know where all the proportions are going to go, but I actually want to hollow out starting from the bottom and also starting from where the face is basically going to go, which is right here. I'm just adding a little bit of extra clay to the front of her nose because the mold didn't quite get that shape the way I wanted it. Small details like this are part of the reason why I want to sculpt the nymphs in porcelain rather than blown glass, because I think even though some parts of my sculpture are going to be glass and some are porcelain, I feel like I can get these small details much more precise in porcelain. But other parts of the sculpture are more suited to glass. At this stage, I've let the porcelain dry out to a point where where it holds its shape, but it still is moldable. But I don't want it to dry out too much or it will start cracking. So it's kind of a balance at this stage. So I have to carefully compress it together without squishing the features of the front of the face. She has this piece of hair that kind of hangs down in front, and I don't want to entirely copy that because something like that could easily break later, but I am going to try to kind of recreate that with a piece of hair that attaches from the side of her face to her shoulder. So taking the height of her head and approximately, so that approximately means I can add the feet there and trim some clay off of the torso. This is why I don't want to have the arms and feet attached at this point, because those extra small pieces of clay can potentially just get knocked out of place as I'm trying to put the two halves together. So it's easier to attach those at the very end. So now that I've added her arms and feet, I'm just getting the small details of her fingers here, and she's nearly done. Very last thing I want to add is just this piece of long hair on this side. So here's the finished sculpture. This is going to be part of a group of 4, and until all the rest of them are made, I'm going to keep this one covered up so that the clay doesn't dry out. And later I will show what I'm going to do with all 4 nymphs in a sculpture.